Welcome back, friends. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the beautiful journey of finding safety in sisterhood and community, really, which is so incredibly crucial as an entrepreneur. I know that if you've been listening to Healing Meets Hustle since the beginning, I'm always going on and on about the importance of community in life, but especially on this entrepreneurial journey, whether you have a biological sister or not, the support and love that we receive from our sister friends can just create such profound safety net. And, for those of us, which in reality is a majority of the world, who has sustained an attachment injury, it can really, really help us develop secure attachment. And so let's begin by reflecting on what safety means in the context of sisterhood. And safety is not just about, physical protection. It's also, and especially in this context, about emotional security, right? It's about feeling seen and feeling heard and understood. It's a safe place where you can come undone, right? There's so much vulnerability in coming undone, especially for us as entrepreneurs. We have to have the answers all the time. People are looking to us to solve problems, to have the answers. And so we need those spaces. It's having a group of people who love and support you and accept you just as you are without any judgment and stand by your side, whether you're making millions or, when shit hits the fan, because it will, right? And the thing is that finding safety in sisterhood can be obviously an incredibly transformative experience, but it's not always easy. And I find that for women like me, right, women like us, of, the global majority, women of color who are also entrepreneurs, who are high achieving, high performing, I think that for us, it's especially not easy. In fact, I'd say that something that we all have in common is some type of attachment injury, or what's commonly referred to as mother wound. And, I always kind of put that in quotes because you can experience an attachment injury from a caregiver or someone who just, took care of you, right? Someone who you attach to early on doesn't necessarily have to be your mother, but it is commonly your mother. And that wound, that injury is created when your mother, primary caretaker, isn't emotionally available, is critical, or is just not attuned to your needs. And, this has a profound impact on you, on me, on us, right? Because it impacts our relational security, meaning how safe or not we feel in relating to or in relation to people. And the other thing that it does is that it creates some like really deeply rooted limiting beliefs around livability, worth, and expression that obviously impacts how we behave, how we move in life, and definitely the quality of our relationships forever, really. And as you might have heard, right, the quality of our lives is impacted by the quality of our relationships. We're human beings, we're relational beings. So, doing this work around, relating to other people in a way that works for us is really, truly monumental. And so, all this to say that our relationship with our mothers significantly influence how we relate to other people, especially other women. Why? Because our relationship with our mothers served as the template. In fact, she was the template for a while. And so, from a young age, we look to our mothers for guidance, nurturance, and protection. And when these things aren't provided for us, right, like these needs aren't met, then it really does impact us in two really profound ways that I want to highlight here. One is that it distorts our perception of ourselves, meaning that when it comes to being in friendships or being friends with other women, it makes us have these questions such as, what kinds of friends or friendships am I worthy of? How do I garner or keep the attention and love of my friends? what kind of friends and connections am I worthy of, right? Like it makes it really difficult for us to answer those questions in a way that is grounded in our reality and who we are, because our sense of self has been compromised. And two, it distorts our friend picker, meaning the ways in which we kind of filter or the ways that we make the decision around, well, who do we want to be friends with, or like what people do we go towards in terms of, creating friendships. And that means that the ways that we are thinking about the like characteristics, for example, of people that we want when it comes to friends is distorted. Our ability to pick up red, yellow, and green flags when it comes to the people that we're around or people that we are in relation to, that's distorted. How we gauge for safety or whether or not we can trust other women is distorted, right? And just like a sidebar here, if you're listening and you're like, wait, this sounds like what happens when you're picking a partner, you're absolutely right. There's very little difference between how we choose our friends and how we choose our partners. Okay. But I digress there. So, just to kind of give you some examples of what that looks like in real life, if you didn't receive validation or approval from your mom growing up, you're going to go and look for it in your friends. You're going to go look for it in a partner, right? It's almost like we're looking for someone to validate that we're worthy, especially when we yet haven't done kind of that work to create that inner safety and become our own mother figure to ourselves. Another example of this is, when we don't receive these things, we can present as guarded and be guarded, like rightfully so. And, that might make it really difficult to trust and open up to other people, to other women, because we might fear that, we might get hurt in the same ways that our mother did, or, if our mothers were kind of guarded and defended in that way, it's very natural for us to kind of present and become the same way as well. And, just to kind of add a little bit of color here, I've been very open and honest about my own personal experience with maternal and attachment injuries. And just like the examples I provided above, before I got into my own healing and got like really deep into my healing, I should say, I too fell prey to building relationships with an underprocessed attachment and maternal injury. And so, like most women with a mother wound, my sense of self was compromised. And, I constantly wondered if I was safe in my relationships and whether or not, I was worthy of the friends and friendships that I had. So what did I do? I overworked in them, like overtime. When I tell you overtime, And, it's safe to say that this happened in part because, I was worried. I didn't know if my spot, if you will, in my friends' lives and my friends' hearts was like safe. And a lot of that came because I didn't feel safe within myself. So of course I went out and looked for that. And I had this one friend who I'd known for about a decade. We went to college together. And, whenever she needed me, I would literally drop what I was doing and go help her, even to my own detriment. There was a point where she was even, living in another state and, she was kind of going through a rough patch. And anytime that she needed me, I would literally rearrange my calendar and hop on a flight to go see her. And, the thing is, I love to serve. I have a healer's heart through and through. I love to help people. And, that's really who I am at my core. But that behavior towards that friend wasn't about that. That wasn't about Josie being this like benevolent person. That was really about, showing my worthiness and that I had earned my place. It's almost like this thinking of like, I'm going to give and give and give so that, if there ever comes a time where my loyalty or my love is questioned, like, I have receipts, right? I don't know if you've ever felt that way. I'm pretty sure that you have. I just want you to know that I see you. I see you. That is a very, very real place to be. And, I was so steeped in that, I just never had the awareness or the wherewithal to like pause and ask, like, am I receiving the same? Like, is this friendship reciprocal? Which it ended up not being. um is this a good friendship to me? Is this person being a good friend to me? Is this relationship nourishing for me? I didn't even know what made a good friend. Like, I just didn't know. And I didn't know, and I never kind of like stopped to even ask those like self inquiry questions because I was on survival mode, right? I didn't yet have a settled nervous system. I was just running on autopilot. And, this is how I knew to secure my love and place in other people's lives and hearts. It's what I saw growing up. And it was what was modeled for me, not just in my family, but just in society as general as a woman. And, I just didn't have the awareness that there was another way. And so, here I was really deep in my own work, in my mother wound work with my therapist at the time. And, my awareness started to expand not only around my relationship with my mother, but also to all my relationships, my amorous relationships, and obviously my friendships, with my girlfriends. And kind of how, as that was happening, this friend ghosted me literally out of nowhere. She stopped returning my phone calls, stopped answering my text messages. I had no idea, and still to this day, I have no idea what I did or said to cause her to treat me in that way. And obviously, that was incredibly hurtful and really, really destabilizing. When someone ghosts you, or rather, when someone ghosts someone with an attachment injury, it can really throw them into a tailspin. And ghosting is a form of abandonment. And it's particularly harsh, can feel particularly harsh if, you have an attachment wound and then someone um, ghosts you. And let me just clarify here. If you have an attachment wound around abandonment and someone ghosts you, it can feel particularly harsh because in many ways it can be re-traumatizing, and definitely triggering when someone who you have an emotional closeness with, or like an attachment to as an adult, abandons you, perhaps in the same ways that a caregiver did earlier on. And so, thankfully, because I was in treatment, I was, had community and had the support of, my therapist. I had more awareness around my wounds and my triggers. So, I was able to respond differently. I had support in that way when she ended up ghosting me. And so, in addition to processing that pain and hurt, I was able to just more deeply, like acutely see how my mother wounds were and had been playing out, and how I chose my friends. And this friend, was an example of that. And definitely how I showed up and how I behaved in friendships. And through that and many other experiences, I was able to develop the tools to not only choose better, but I was able to and have been able to choose better because now I know myself better than I ever have. And, when it comes to choosing people, choosing my circle, choosing the people that I allow into my life, into my energy, now that is coming from a place of like me, right? It's coming from a place of like my values. It's not being determined by my wounds. It's not being determined by kind of pain that is just kind of running in the background, kind of calling the shots. And y'all, now, mm, 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 I have the most magical group of girlfriends. Like, I love them so much, it hurts. And I tell them that all the time. I actually can't wait to have them on the podcast as a group soon so that maybe we can kind of talk about the magic in our friendship, because it's not that I'm biased. It's just that this is just something so special. But anyway, conversation for a different day. Never before had I been able to be myself fully, to come undone fully, to express all of my wildest dreams fully, to be checked so kindly and with so much love. Like, never before had I been able to be seen so deeply or cheerled so hard and genuinely. Like, my friends nurture, protect, and guide me in many of the same ways that I now can do for myself. They're mirrors, like loving mirrors. And y'all, one of the most profoundly healing things is being witnessed. And they are that for me. And so, clearly I love my friends with all of my heart, and I'll just stop gushing over them now. But I always joke and say that my husband will have to thank my friends for helping me get ready for him and our love, because my friends and the friendships that we have been able to cultivate have been a major catalyst for me developing secure attachment within myself. Like, literally, y'all, this is like generation shifting work. And so, how did I get here? Right? How was I able to go from being insecurely and anxiously attached, and how was I able to go from that hurtful situation with that friend to like really finding safety in sisterhood, and being, and feeling, or being able to be securely attached? And so it really started with developing and cultivating my own inner safety. Sorry if it's a little anticlimactic, but y'all, it's really that simple. Going from living on survival mode to gifting myself a settled nervous system, right? Like, for me personally, that included investing time and money with practitioners who could really help me shed the things that I had inherited, right? And the armor that I had built over the years to stay safe. And I can't ignore, it's like not lost on me that I've been able to do that because of my entrepreneurial journey, right? Because I put in the work, and I did the hard work once, and was able to build a business that gifted me the capacity to be able to invest the resources, right? Time and money to really be able to heal, right? And I don't think that this can only happen for people who are entrepreneurs. This can happen for anyone, but it really does begin with a choice, right? It begins with a choice, and it begins with awareness. And so, kind of coming back to this idea of like safety, building that inner safety meant that I felt safe, that no matter what was happening around me, no matter, what was happening around me that was out of my control, I got me, right? That I knew that I could figure things out and give myself the things that, I couldn't give myself before. And, when you really truly believe that you can figure things out, you end up worrying less. There is just a calm that comes over you, and you just become lighter. Your anxiety lessens. You can be more present because you're not worried about the future, right? Like, you're not worried about, well, what is going to come after me? I'm feeling unsafe. No. And again, this isn't about bypassing. This isn't about living in la la land. This is about being grounded, kind of like an oak tree, being grounded and knowing that, shit is going to happen, because, the only thing that is certain in life is uncertainty, right? Like, no matter the storms that come through, that you are rooted and grounded. Like, I don't know if I'm making myself clear here. I really truly hope that I am, but that's really what kind of was the catalyst for all of this. And when I started to shift, when I started to change, when I started to feel this grounded, it's like these friends appeared. I could attract, and I can call in the sister friends who matched my frequency, right? The folks who can support me in like these like really profound, like non shallow, like, oh, I love that for you, girl, ways, and I really don't mean that in like a shady way, but if you know, you know. And so, not only that, but I could really show up to these friendships as myself lighter, offering my genuine spirit again. Like, I'm not offering this like wounded version who honestly can't help but hijack the friendship because she's not inner resourced. And, again, I don't mean that in any shady way, but, I always say that I need friends who can take care of themselves. Because when, you've invested time to get to this place of inner safety and you have people in your circle who are not yet inner resourced, they can't help but show up to the friendship, with this in this wounded version, and then end up leeching off of your nervous system. And I know that may sound harsh for some people, but again, um, you need friends who can take care of themselves, especially once you've learned to do that for yourself. Like taking good, like really good care of yourself is already challenging enough in the world that we live in. Like you need friends that can do their part too. And so to wrap up here, as always, I want to leave you with some self inquiry and some reflection questions to support you on your journey to finding safety and sisterhood, or deepening that safety if that's something that you already have. So, 3 questions I want to leave you with. One is, what friendships make me feel emotionally safe and why? 2, what makes a friendship a nourishing relationship for me? Like, really list that out. Like, what are the signals for you that a friendship is actually nourishing for your spirit? 3, what's the glue that holds my friendships together? And this one can really open up a can of worms, especially if you have friends or friendships that are a little bit older. So, just kind of wanted to throw that in there. So again, those 3 questions are: what friendships make me feel emotionally safe and why? What makes a friendship a nurturing relationship for me in particular? And what's the glue that holds my friendships together? All right, friends, I hope that was helpful. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.